Not if we can't have the number of staff we believe we need.
Jacobson also says the U.S. will insist on freedom of movement for U.S. diplomats, even if they have to notify the Cubans before they travel around the island. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
Syrian activists say militants with the self-proclaimed Islamic State have seized almost full control of the ancient Syrian town of Palmyra, although it remains unclear how close to the famed archaeological site there they've come. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says government forces collapsed in the face of Islamic State attacks and withdrew from the town. On Wall Street today, the Dow was down 26 points. This is NPR News from Washington.
And this is WNYC in New York. I'm Sean Carlson. New York City is trying to make sure more nail salon workers are aware of their rights. Following an expose on conditions in salons by the New York Times, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo enacted emergency measures to protect workers. Now the city is launching a campaign to inform workers of their rights and calling for a day of action tomorrow. Department of Consumer Affairs Commissioner Julie Menin says volunteers will hand out information in subway stations and city agencies will visit hundreds of salons.
We want to make clear we're not telling people not to go to nail salons at all. What we're trying to do is educate workers, educate consumers, and make sure that the owners know their responsibilities under the law.
Menin says her department is also investigating placement agencies that could connect workers to jobs that don't pay minimum wage. The Drug Enforcement Administration seized more than 150 pounds of heroin from drug traffickers in the Bronx yesterday. The heroin was trafficked from Mexico and is worth at least $50 million. The DEA says it was the largest heroin bust ever in New York State. Agents made 2 arrests. Fewer New Yorkers cast ballots in school budget votes this week, but more spending plans passed. Reporter Karen DeWitt says budget approvals were made easier in part because of the state's property tax cap.
All but around 2.5% of school budgets that stayed within the state's property tax cap were approved in this week's vote. That's according to the New York State School Boards Association. The school board's Dave Albert says the tax cap enacted by the governor and legislature and put in place 3 years ago has played a role, but it's not the only factor. He says state aid to schools, which dipped during the recession, has increased, with an additional $1.3 billion awarded to districts by the legislature this year.
If the legislature were to continue to provide significant state aid increases, we wouldn't need a tax cap.
Only 18 of the state's over 700 school districts proposed budgets that exceeded the 2% per year tax cap. Just over half of those spending plans failed. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
Mayor de Blasio says the rebuilding of the World Trade Center in a thriving downtown Manhattan shows that the 9/11 attackers lost. De Blasio was among the guests when CBS This Morning was broadcast live from the new 102nd floor observation deck on One World Trade Center. De Blasio says the World Trade Center is safe, secure, and better than ever. The observation deck opens to the public on May 29th. For tonight, increasing clouds, low around 50 degrees. Tomorrow, Thursday, slight chance of rain in the afternoon, cloudy skies, high 64. 61 degrees, partly sunny now. This is WNYC at 5:35.
Support for NPR comes from WNYC members and from America's Natural Gas. Learn how Tobe Maritime is working to reduce emissions across their fleet by building container ships that run on natural gas. Learn more at thinkaboutit.org. And Carbonite, providing secure backup and recovery for businesses and homes. Since 2005, Carbonite has backed up more than 500 billion files, from email servers to family photos. Learn more at carbonite.com.
Good afternoon. This is WNYC. Thanks for joining us during our spring membership campaign. And today is the last scheduled day of the drive. And this is significant. It's also significant because we have a very big goal today. We're looking to raise $450,000 by the end of the day so that we can end the fundraiser on time and on goal. We just have a couple hours left of all things considered this evening. So we're getting down to the last couple of hours here. We're asking for your help this evening so we can, this this afternoon so we can stay on track. Here's the number to call, 888-376-9692. You can give online at wnyc.org. This is the money that WNYC needs so that we can pay for the programming. We're also, my name is David First. We're joined by WNYC reporter Ilya Maritz. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We are asking you, the listeners of WNYC, to think about sometime you did a little something extra that was good for your community. Maybe you were a chaperone on a school trip. Maybe you volunteered at a soup kitchen, or maybe you're on the AIDS walk, some kind of fundraising walk like that. Well, it's actually quite a bit easier to help WNYC. It only takes 2 or 3 minutes of your time, but it's the same principle. You interrupt your routine a little bit, you put in a little bit of your effort, your hard-earned cash, and in return you get to feel good about bringing a respected, independent news source to your community. The number to call, 888-376-9692, or click on over to WNYC.org.
WNYC Radio depends on your financial support. For your gift of $1,200 or more, we'd like to invite you to join our Producers Circle. Members will be thanked with invitations to Producers Circle events and studio tours. Most importantly, you'll help support the show's news and information you rely on every day. To learn more, call 1-888-376-9692 or pledge online at wnyc.org.
If you can afford to give at that level, when you join our Producers Circle, you'll be invited to tour our studios and meet your favorite hosts. We invite you to Producers Circle events throughout the year. You can join the Producers Circle right now with a contribution of $100 a month. And as we are looking to stay on track to raise $450,000 by the end of the day today, that would be a great help if you can afford to do that right now. Here's the number, 888-376-9692. WNYC.org is the website. Ilya, you were mentioning all different volunteering opportunities there, helping out on school trips. If you've ever have volunteered at a school, or maybe during the recess and lunch period, you know what that's like. You can help out here without having to get the ketchup stains on your shirt. It's a much simpler process. Call us 888-3. You can't stand too close to the garbage cans.
No, you got to
personal.
You have to position yourself.
You do. 888-376-9692. You can also do it online, wnyc.org. We thank you very much for your support.
Do it for your community. Do it for yourself. If you listen to WNYC, you might as well be a member. We've been in Pledge Drive now for a little over a week. You've probably been hearing these messages before. If you haven't taken the time, well, now is actually a great time. We have this ambitious goal today. We're trying to reach $450,000 in pledges raised. We can get there, but we're not there yet. We need your help. We need the help of the procrastinators and the people who just were somehow kind of too busy. It only takes 2 or 3 minutes of your time, I promise. It's really easy to do when you call 888-376-9692. And we have a lot of really awesome tote bags. You might want to just go to the WNYC.org website and check them out first before you decide what level to pledge at.
Well, during these fundraisers, we only ask what it takes to bring WNYC to you every day. Please give as generously as you can right now to help us meet the goal. 888-376-9692 or give online at wnyc.org.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Melissa Block.
And I'm Robert Siegel. Think back to all the fanfare around President Obama's executive actions on immigration. They were sweeping, they were polarizing, and they've been on hold. NPR's Tamara Keith has this update.
Immigrant families all over the country were watching when President Obama made a rare primetime address last November.
My fellow Americans, tonight I'd like to talk with you about immigration.
That was Obama announcing his much-anticipated executive actions on immigration. Those actions were aimed at people who've been in the country more than 5 years and who have children who are U.S. citizens or legal permanent residents.
You'll be able to apply to stay in this country temporarily without fear of deportation. You can come out of the shadows and get right with the law.
That night, Carla Rodriguez was at a watch party in Las Vegas where she lives. Obama was talking about people like her parents.
It was just It was crazy. Everybody was crying.
She ran to her mom, Avelia Beltran, and then they called her dad, Cesar Orozco. His first reaction was joy.
And hope that it would come to pass.
Yes, I also thought of many possibilities that we would have as part of this country.
More than anything, the security. My security.
They have a mixed status family. Orozco and Beltran and 3 of their children came to the country illegally. 2 younger children were born in the U.S. They worry constantly about being separated. 11-year-old Evelyn Orozco says when she wakes up in the morning, her first thought is whether her parents have been picked up by immigration.
So I have to get up and just be like, Mom, are you here? Dad? So it's really scary.
Big sister Carla Rodriguez remembers when she was about 10 years old being invited to hang out with a friend at a casino with carnival games for kids.
And I'd seen on the news that there had been immigration raids, and I was terrified to ask my dad to drive me. Because in my head I said, if we leave the house, they're going to get deported.
Under the president's program, her parents would have been submitting applications right about now for a temporary reprieve from deportation. But the program is on hold, pending court action. 26 states sued to block the president's executive actions, arguing they would be harmed. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is leading the charge. He spoke on NBC's Meet the Press in December.
The issue in this lawsuit is about abuse of executive power, and if this abuse is not stopped, it will erode the Constitution that has attracted so many people to this country for generations.
For supporters of the lawsuit, the uncertainty now faced by immigrant families isn't the result of the suit, but rather the president's decision to go it alone with executive action. The legal process could drag on for months or even years. Carla Rodriguez works as a community organizer and is counseling immigrant families like her own.
Members of the community ask me when this is going to happen, and I can't say anything. I just say, well, we're just going to wait, and it sucks.
Rodriguez is encouraging people she talks to who think they might qualify to gather their documentation. If the program ever does get started, immigrants will have to prove they've been in the U.S. for more than 5 years. For her dad, that's easy. He has utility bills and pay stubs. For her mom, it's tougher. Beltran has been a stay-at-home mom.
For me, it's harder because everything has been put in his name. For me, as a wife, I have nothing.
Rodriguez says she's telling her mom and others to think outside the box.
Get creative. If you have a party invitation and a picture, send that. Because you have to get creative with how you prove that you've been here and qualify.
The challenge of proving residency is something the Obama administration was prepared to grapple with. But until the lawsuit is resolved, that planning is on hold too. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
In California, a bill to allow physician-assisted suicide is moving forward. Last fall, a terminally ill 29-year-old named Brittany Menard galvanized Right to Die supporters with videos explaining why she wanted to end her life. She did so in Oregon, where physician-assisted suicide is legal. Well, now another young woman is sharing her story, but she wants people to draw a different conclusion. Stephanie O'Neill from member station KPCC reports.
It's lunchtime on a spring break afternoon. Stephanie Packer of Orange, California is crowded in the kitchen with her 4 children. 11-year-old Brian, 10-year-old Scarlett, 8-year-old Jacob, and 5-year-old Savannah.
Do you want to help? Yeah. You have to wash your hands if you want to help.
She directs the chaos as the kids vie for their chance to help mom make chicken salad sandwiches. For Packer, these are cherished moments. In 2012, after she suffered a series of debilitating lung infections, her doctor told her she had scleroderma. It can cause fatal hardening of the skin and other organs and had settled in her lungs.
And I said, okay, well, what does this mean for me? And he said, well, you have about 3 years left to live.
For Packer, the illness requires nearly full-time oxygen. She's also in pain and takes a variety of medications for it and a slew of other related conditions. Some days, she says, are good. Others are consumed by low energy and pain that only sleep can relieve.
For my kids, I need to be able to control the pain because that's what concerns them the most.
Packer was 29 when she got her terminal diagnosis, the same age as Brittany Menard. But unlike Menard, Packer says physician-assisted suicide will never be an option for her.
Wanting the pain to stop, wanting the humiliating side effects to go away. That's absolutely natural, and I've absolutely been there, and I still get there some days. But I don't get to that point of wanting to end it all, because I do have the tools to understand that today is a horrible day, but tomorrow doesn't have to be.
She and husband Brian are devout Catholics. They agree with their church that doctors should never hasten death, even, Brian says, in the face of a challenging, incurable disease.
God put us here on the earth, and only God can take us away. And He has a master plan for us. And if suffering is part of that plan, which it seems to be, then so be it.
The Packers also believe the California legislation and laws in 5 states where assisted suicide is legal create the potential for abuse. Pressure to end one's life, they fear, could become a dangerous norm, especially in a world where medical care is so expensive. Stephanie hopes terminally ill people will instead consider palliative medicine and hospice care.
Death can be beautiful and peaceful, and it's a natural process that should be allowed to happen on its own.
Even, she says, when it poses uncomfortable challenges. Brian's traded his full-time job at a lumber company for weekend handyman work so he can care for Stephanie and the children. The family moved into a smaller home, a 2-bedroom apartment they share with their dog and 2 pet geckos. Even so, Brian says, life is good.
I have 4 beautiful children. I get to spend more time with my wife than most husbands do.
Stephanie agrees.
My lungs are going to give out, which will make my heart give out. And I know that it's going to happen sooner than I'd like and sooner than my family would like. But I'm not making that my focus. My focus is today.
Stephanie Packer is hoping she can get a lung transplant that could give her a few more years, she says. In the meantime, this month marks 3 years since her doctor gave her 3 years to live. So every day, she says, is a blessing. For NPR News, I'm Stephanie O'Neill.
This story is part of a reporting partnership of NPR, KPCC, and Kaiser Health News.
Support for NPR comes from member stations and from Netflix with the new original series, Grace and Frankie, a story about 2 women forced to reinvent their lives, starring Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Martin Sheen, and Sam Waterston. All episodes are now streaming. And Dropbox, offering Dropbox for Business with added features designed for the needs of businesses. Employees can access and share work files from anywhere, while business leaders have centralized billing and security controls. Learn more at dropbox.com/business.
This is All Things Considered on WNYC. I'm David First. School shootings like Columbine and Newtown have fundamentally changed the way teachers and law enforcement respond to violent situations. In many states, schools hold regular security drills to prepare for any possible emergency. But as investigative reporter Paisley Chang from our partner WNBC discovered, in New Jersey there appears to be a lack of oversight when it comes to how and when these drills are conducted. Paisley joins us now. Welcome back to WNYC.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us what's required of schools when it comes to running safety drills.
Well, it depends on the tri-state area. In New York State, you're only required to do 1 security drill a year for a school. In Connecticut, you have to do them at least 3 times a year. But New Jersey has some of the strictest laws in the country. They have to do 1 drill a month, 1 security drill a month, and that's 10 a year, at least. I mean, if you have summer school, you have to do more. And they also have to keep records of it.
And if you're doing 10 a year, there's going to be a lot of records.
Yes, and that's how we focused in on this. We sent in Oprah requests to schools in 10 counties in New Jersey, going through hundreds of these from different schools. And, you know, I have to say, Oprah requested a bunch of counties in our viewing area, Bergen, Passaic, Morris, but there were a lot of school districts that were reluctant to hand over these public records. So we actually had to sue 45 school districts, and a lot of them gave the records over after the lawsuit was filed, but we are still waiting for records from different schools.
Well, what has been the response from school districts and the state?
Well, one of the things we found when we looked at these school drill records is that there were a lot of questionable dates, 150 questionable dates out of 23 school districts. And when I say questionable, I mean a school drill that was said to have been done on a weekend, on a school holiday or during a winter or spring break. Now, the law is very clear. It says that the drills need to be done during school hours. And so the spirit of the law was written so that everybody in the school could practice in these drills and be prepared together. The response has been interesting. First of all, almost every school that we have gone back to and said, hey, why were these drills done on Rosh Hashanah or, Christmas? Was school even in session then? And they would all tell me immediately these were just typos, that, all these drills actually happened during the school week. But the response from the state actually was the most surprising because they hadn't even looked at the information that we had found, never asked for it, when we first approached them with this. And they immediately told us that the law is written so that it doesn't necessarily say that students have to be involved in the drills. Now, every school security expert that we've spoken to has told us, if you're doing these drills without the students, they're pretty much worthless. Unless you're doing some really heavy artillery equipment, maybe like a SWAT team coming in, or you're actually recreating an active shooter situation. But we thought it was very interesting that the state education department basically told us that they could understand why schools might want to do drills on school holidays, winter and spring recesses, as well as the weekends.
Why did they say they could understand? Because of the disruption to class?
Exactly. A disruption to the students. They thought that there were some drills that students didn't need to participate in because of the nature of that. And I can understand that, but not this number of drills.
You may have that feeling that there's this disruption and that maybe we don't need so many drills, but the law